Hey to every Galatian studying guy and gal out there. Today's lesson, Galatians 4:21 through 31. And the title of the lesson is Illustrations from Abraham. Maybe you can see my heater. It's been cold where I live. And we've had snow. Hopefully it's the last of it. But you know what? I've stayed in all week, so I haven't done anything or went anywhere. Okay, let's look at verse 21. So we should have it down by now that Paul calls following rules slavery. Rules. Rules are needed for order, but let's look at verse 21. It's a powerful and rhetorical question here that Paul is asking. Is it descriptive, though, of today's Christians? What do you think? We do not think it through sometimes, and I wonder what you think. Have you not thought this thing through to the ultimate end, is what he's saying, The two laws here mean something different in the Greek. The first one, that's mentioned in this verse, is a standard of rules to be made righteous before God. We need to keep the law. And then the second one doesn't just mean what we keep, but the body of the scripture. The first 5 books of the Bible, the Torah, in other words, tell me what you want to earn, how you earn your righteousness, standing by your works. And of course, have you ever read these scriptures? It's a works thing. Let's move on. Verse 22 and 23. Paul is going to use the rest of the chapter to unpack on the thought process of the individuals who say you have to keep laws or rules. If you remember, Abraham was called to leave his country to go to Canaan. Now, he promised to all his descendants, but he had none. They waited and waited, and none of us like to wait. Everybody likes to drive through religion, right? So look at Isaiah 40:31. Those that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. How many of us really wait upon the Lord? Think about that. There's different kinds of waiting. Waiting for something to happen. You'll be depleted. And that's what happened to Abraham, 86 years old, and Sarah, she was 90. God needed some help. So they thought he did. So they gave him Hagar. And of course, they have Ishmael. And we still have trouble with that today. Then 100 years old, God reiterated it. Abraham laughed in amazement, laughing at his own stupidity. Go look at Genesis 17:18 through 19. And the word, of course, Isaac, their son, the name means laughter. All Jewish names have a meaning to them, or they do in the Bible. And of course, God gave Abraham that rule. I'm going to give you a son, and Abraham got ahead of God's plan. How many of you out there get ahead of God's plan? I've done it. Let's look at verses 24 through 27. This, of course, is an allegory, like a story poem, which has a hidden meaning. Sarah is freedom. These two mothers are a picture of you and I. They show us Hagar is a Mount Sinai, a slaver. Sarah was free. The children were also a picture. Ishmael was born of flesh, born of a work of the flesh. Isaac was born as a result of a promise. We have these two boys representing two different things. Ishmael represents those born of the flesh and work to please God by works. Slow down, think about that. Isaac is a picture of someone born supernaturally, right, and does not work to please according to the flesh. People, we have been born into a life of promise, not of flesh. The birth of Isaac was a miracle, supernatural. Let's go and read John 1:12 through 13. And of course, verse 28, we are a promise. We can never earn or understand the life of faith. Verse 29, Ishmael mocked Isaac at his weaning party, which is a weaning feast. Sarah saw it, wanted Hagar gone. God told Abraham to listen to his wife. All right, gentlemen, listen to your wives. Why did Paul give us this again? He is saying that there is no inheritance for the slave. The slave child is a picture of us trying to please God through works. You cannot mix grace and legalism, and we try so hard to do so. And finally, verse 31, we are children of a free woman. Think about that. Not a slave to a performance track. We live as a child of the King. The Jews did not like people calling God Father. Jesus did it a lot. And I want you to think about this. Jesus was God and human at the same time, yet he prayed to God. Did he really need to? You know, I think the relationship there, he had a relationship with God. So prayer is important for our relationship, just as opening the Bible and reading it. And that intimacy that you can have with God is beyond what you'd ever want with anything else. The Jews here were going to stone Jesus in this reference for calling God his Father. But Paul was blown away by people here in the churches in Galatia wanting to go backwards. We are free from a taskmaster trying to earn God's favor. And Galatians is going to talk about this a lot. You cannot mix grace and legalism. We try very hard to do so. What are your legalistic rules? I mean, we have several of them where I go to church. And the churches in our area. I'm sure you do. What is the most important thing? By grace through faith are you saved. Does that give us a right to sin? And he's going to address this as he goes on in Galatians. So don't just hang in there. I know this is kind of... But Paul does this whenever he makes a point. He goes on and on and on to make his point in his argument. And we're going to get there. Please hang in there. See you all next week.